The distance between us. My name is James Walker. I'm a high school history teacher. Nothing glamorous. I wear corduroy jackets and drink my coffee black. My life is quiet, structured. That's how I like it. My wife, Melissa, works in marketing. She's always been more extroverted than I am, charismatic, witty, with this ability to light up a room. We met in college. She was spontaneous. I was cautious. I think that's what drew us to each other. For a long time, our differences felt like a perfect fit. But lately, things have changed. It started small. She began staying late at work more often. Her phone buzzed at odd hours. She became distant. I chalked it up to stress. We were trying to get pregnant, and the pressure was mounting. But something didn't sit right. One night she came home after 11 p.m., said she was at a team dinner. I asked who was there. She paused. Too long. Then rattled off a list of names I didn't recognize. Her eyes didn't meet mine. That's when the doubt began. I didn't want to be the jealous husband. I really didn't. But curiosity gnawed at me. One night, after she fell asleep, I looked at her phone. It was locked. It hadn't been before. I felt a sick twist in my stomach. Over the next week, I noticed more things. She smiled at her phone but never shared the joke. She got defensive when I asked about her day. And she started dressing differently, more makeup, heels for work, even perfume on weekdays. I asked myself, am I imagining this? Am I going crazy? So I started documenting it. Just a little. A journal, times, dates, observations. I told myself it was for clarity, for truth. But truth has a way of turning on you. One Friday night, she said she had a conference the next day in Philadelphia. I nodded, kissed her goodbye the next morning. Then I followed her. God help me, I followed my wife. She didn't go to Philadelphia. She drove to a townhouse in Cherry Hill, parked, got out. A man greeted her at the door. Older, tall, silver hair. She kissed him. Not a cheek kiss. A slow, intimate kiss. I sat in my car, hands gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I couldn't move. I drove home in a fog, didn't sleep that night. When she returned the next evening, I pretended nothing had happened. She was cheerful, relaxed. I nodded along as she told me about the seminar. I wondered how long she'd been lying to me. The next day, I called in sick. I went to the townhouse. It was empty. No car. No signs of life. I knocked. No answer. The mailbox said Henderson. I began digging. Online databases, property records. The man's name was Mark Henderson. Divorced. Owned a media firm in Center City. I searched Melissa's emails. She'd once worked with a company he contracted. That was the connection. I confronted her a week later. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I just asked, "Are you seeing someone else?" She froze. Her fork hovered mid-air. Then slowly, she put it down. "Why would you ask that? Just answer, please." She sighed, looked away. "I don't know what we are anymore, James. We don't talk, we don't touch. You barely look at me." I felt my chest tighten. That's not an answer. "Yes," she said, quietly. "I've been seeing someone." The room spun. The days after were a blur. She moved out the following weekend. Said she needed space. I stayed behind in our too-quiet house, eating takeout and rewatching old movies we once loved. I didn't cry. Not at first. But grief is patient. It waits until you let your guard down. One night I opened our wedding album. I stared at her face, radiant in that white dress, and the tears came. Weeks passed. We spoke now and then, cordial, distant. She said it wasn't serious with Mark, that it had already ended. "I don't know what I want," she told me. Neither did I. I saw a therapist. She said I was coping well, all things considered. But sometimes I'd still drive by the townhouse, just to see, just to feel something. Eventually, a for sale sign went up. Months later, we met for coffee. She looked tired, softer somehow. "I miss you," she said. "Not just the routine. You, the way you used to laugh, the way we used to be." I nodded, but I didn't answer, because I didn't know if I missed her or just the version of her I thought I knew. We didn't get back together. We didn't fight either. Some stories don't end with a bang, some end with a whisper, a long silence, a closing door. 6 months later, I started dating again, tentatively, awkwardly, coffee dates and small talk that felt like high school again. I met Rachel in a bookshop. She taught art therapy. We clicked, slowly, like two shy animals. Melissa and I exchanged occasional texts. She asked about my dog. I asked about her mother. That was it. I heard she moved to Seattle. New job, fresh start. She left behind a storage unit. I kept the key for a while, unsure what to do. 1. The secrets we keep. My name is Claire Donovan. I used to believe in happy endings, the kind you read about in novels or see in those quiet, thoughtful movies where the rain always stops just in time and people say the right things in coffee shops. I married Luke when I was 25. He was kind, funny in a self-deprecating way, and had that steady presence that made you believe everything would be okay. We bought a house outside Seattle, raised 2 golden retrievers before we even thought about children, and spent weekends drinking wine on the deck and talking about our plans. For years, it was good. Not perfect, but solid. Real. Or so I thought. The first time I felt something crack was the night he forgot our anniversary. It wasn't just that he forgot. It was that when I reminded him, he looked at me like he genuinely didn't know what I was talking about. After that night, little things piled up. He worked late more often. His phone never left his side. I once caught him turning it over when I walked into the room. He laughed it off. "Work email," he said, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. I didn't want to be paranoid. I'd seen what suspicion did to people, how it turned love into surveillance, so I tried to be trusting, until I found the receipt. It was from a hotel in Portland. Dated for a weekend, he was supposedly on a work trip in Chicago. I remember staring at the paper in my hand, reading the date over and over, the name of the hotel, the time of check-in. He hadn't even tried to hide it. The receipt was folded into his jacket pocket, the same one I took to the dry cleaners that morning. I didn't say anything that night. I didn't sleep either. Instead, I started paying attention. His texts, his calendar, his mood shifts. I learned the rhythm of his deception, and I started to build my own story. Not the one he told me, but the one I could see now in hindsight. Missing pieces that no longer seemed random. A weekend he canceled with my parents. A business dinner that didn't line up with his expense report. A number in his call log labeled only as consultant. I didn't confront him, not right away, because I needed to understand, because some part of me still hoped I was wrong. One Saturday, I followed him. He told me he was meeting a client in Bellevue. I waited 10 minutes, then got in my car. He wasn't in Bellevue. He was in Redmond, parked outside a townhouse. I watched from the corner of the street as a woman opened the door and kissed him like she'd done it 1,000 times. She was maybe 30. Dark hair, tall, confident. She looked like someone from his world, polished, efficient. I sat there for over an hour, then I drove home. I didn't tell anyone, not my sister, not my best friend, not even my therapist. It felt like if I spoke it out loud, it would become real in a way I couldn't control. So instead, I played the part. I cooked dinner. I asked about his day. I let him kiss my cheek and tell me he loved me. And at night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering when my life became a story I didn't recognize. I wasn't even angry, just empty. The confrontation came 3 weeks later. I printed the hotel receipt, a photo I'd taken of them leaving the townhouse, an email I forwarded from our shared laptop. He hadn't logged out of his account. I placed them on the kitchen table. When he came home, I didn't say a word. I just pointed. He didn't deny it, didn't lie. He sat down, rubbed his face like he was tired, and said, "I'm sorry." That was it. "How long?" I asked. "A year, maybe more." I nodded. I didn't cry. I told him to leave. He moved into a rental the next day. The dogs were confused. They paced near the door, waiting for him. I took 2 weeks off work. Said I had the flu. I didn't leave the house. I didn't shower. I barely ate. Grief is strange. It comes in waves. Some days I felt normal. Other days I felt like I was drowning in invisible water. One night, I got drunk and called the woman. I didn't plan to, but her number was saved in the forwarded email. She answered on the third ring. "Hello? Do you know who I am?" Silence. "I'm Claire, Luke's wife." She exhaled. I know. I wanted to scream, to curse. But instead I asked, "Did he ever tell you he was leaving me?" "He said he wasn't ready, that he was trying." "Trying what?" "To decide." I laughed, bitter and loud. "He already decided," I said. "He just didn't tell either of us." I hung up. Weeks became months. We filed for divorce. Quietly, no drama, no lawyers. We split everything down the middle. He asked if we could stay friends. I didn't answer. Instead, I started running. Every morning, rain or shine. I lost weight. I cut my hair. I changed the furniture. Sometimes I'd pass by couples in the park and feel a pang so sharp it stole my breath. But other times I felt light, free. Like maybe, just maybe, I could start again. 6 months after the divorce, I met someone, Daniel. He worked at the local bookstore, wrote poetry no one read, made terrible cappuccinos but tried hard. He didn't ask too many questions. That was what I needed. We started slow. Walks, coffee, sitting beside each other in silence. One night I told him everything. He listened, just listened. Then he said, "Sometimes the worst things make room for the real things." I didn't know if I believed him, but I wanted to. Luke called one evening, almost a year to the day since he moved out. I saw his name flash on my phone and felt that old, familiar sting. "I miss you," he said. "Do you miss me? Or do you miss the comfort?" He didn't answer. "I loved you," I said. "Truly. But I won't be the safety net you fall back into." We said goodbye. I blocked his number. Now, 2 years later, Daniel and I live in a small apartment above a bakery. It smells like cinnamon every morning. We still walk, still read. He still writes poetry. Sometimes I think about Luke, about the version of life I thought I'd live, but I've learned something in the wreckage. Some endings aren't failures. They're beginnings in disguise.